San Rocco was 1903. Okay, so we'll go to Chicago Heights. This is Angelo Ciambrone, who is my former employer. He's a former mayor of Chicago Heights, and I work for him. He and August and Zelmo have been very loyal members of San Rocco Church in Chicago Heights, and he'll tell you a little bit about the story of its suppression and rebirth. Sam?
Thank you, Dominic. Chicago Heights is about 42 miles southeast of here. The city was organized as a village in 1892. And around that time, the Italian immigrants started to come to Chicago Heights. The original immigrants in the Chicago Heights area were from around Naples, Napolitan. Then we had an influx of Abruzzese coming in. And then we had Marchigiani coming in. Then the Sicilian community came up from New Orleans. At that time, New Orleans was the easiest port of entry. Customs was a little easier to get in and out. So they came up the old IC railroad train to Chicago Heights. And again, the immigrants came to where they had paesani, relatives, came in. The original church services for the Catholic community was in a saloon hall on 17th and Union Street, and that's where Sunday services were celebrated, and by missionaries coming out of Chicago's probably some early Scalabrinis coming in. In about 1904, Archbishop Quigley declared 9 parishes of Italian parishes without territory, and that's when the Catholic Church was organized in Chicago Heights. And the first name of our church was Our Lady of Pompeii, which gives you the influence of the Neapolitan. Then in 1904, the Archdiocese called on Father Ronzulo to come in to organize the parish. The cornerstone for the church was laid in 1906, and Father Ronzulo loved the name of San Rocco. So you can see the name was changed to San Rocco. The building was started in September, give or take, of 06, completed in about 12 months, a Romanesque church. And the big thing was that it cost $15,000 for the church. And at that time, Father Ronzulo, who served from 1906 to 1922, he organized, he had a rectory built, he had a convent built, and in 1912, the school was built, and the school was named Mount Carmel. And the Mount Carmel School was the traditional early parishes where you had church, classrooms on top in the basement. But here, it was a little different. Father Ronzulo, we had 4 classrooms, 2 grades to a class. The upstairs was an auditorium, an assembly hall for the people to come and have plays, whatever, and the basement was the recreation hall. The church was built, and the Father Ronzulo was the pastor, and in 1912 the school was finished, and the Sisters of St. Joseph of LaGrange were called to staff the school, and they staffed the school until the number of sisters went down until the school was closed in 1960, 1990, 1989. The church under Father Ronzulo really made progress. A lot of organizations, but again, as in Dominic's book, The the Italian women, the unsung heroes. It was always the women who were the anchor of the church. The men, there was a saloon across the street, they would go there while the families went to Mass. But that was the thing. We had many good societies. We had Holy Name, Christian Mothers, St. Teresa Sodality, the Mothers Guild, the Fathers Guild from the school. The activities were great and kept the parish until 1922, when Father Rinsulo, he was not affiliated with any order, went back to Italy. At that time, the Archdiocese invited the conventual Franciscans, the Black Franciscans from Mount St. Francis in Indiana. It was basically a German order, and they came over and they took charge and direction of our church. For 4 years, we had 2 pastors, and the direction was not the same. And there was a little problem. So I guess the conventuals did not have any Italian priest in the in their province. So they called the general in Italy, say, look, we need some help here. And in 1926, Father Pacifico Bonanni was appointed pastor. But the thing, he would never became a member of the province of Our Lady Consolation. He was there at pleasure. Somehow we made progress. The amount of construction took a lot of money. When Father Pacifico took over, we had a financial problem. But through the efforts of the societies, the men, it was taken care of. At that time, in about the 30s or late 20s, the Father Pacifico did a restoration of the church. New stained glass windows from Italy, marble altars, communion rail, the really beautiful little, it wasn't big, probably the size of this room. But again, during the war, the young people coming back, the parish grew. The school, the 4 classrooms were not sufficient. So Father Pacifico left the United States in '51, and again, the conventuals did not have an Italian personnel to come, so Father Patrick came as the pastor. And again, coming into an Italian with not the feeling of the Italian family, it was a rocky situation. So in 1956, we didn't celebrate our 50th anniversary because we couldn't get the people together. But Father Patrick stayed for a while, and then Father Leo became the pastor, and that's when we built a new grade school. It was a brand new school in the 60s, 8 classrooms, a gymnasium, a study hall, a complete, beautiful, beautiful building. And it was staffed by the Sisters of St. Joseph and lay teachers. So all in all, the church itself always stood solid. And it seems that the times that we had an Italian direction, we had Father Antonio Mastrangelo. In '65, we had a tornado come through Chicago Heights and up went the roof. So the church was almost destroyed. So Mass moved into the gymnasium, and the new school, and again, the remodeling and the reconstruction of the church according to the new standards, no communion rail, and all. And we were proceeding very well. Until the 1990s, or '89, there was this rumor that churches were going to be closed. In Chicago Heights, we had 6 Catholic churches. Catholic, Lithuanian, German, Slovak, Polish, Irish, and Italian. So they decided that they were going to eliminate 3 of the parishes. So the three parishes that the committee decided would be San Rocco, which was financially stable and able to support itself, St. Joseph, and St. Anne's. St. Anne's said, okay, fine, we'll close our doors. That was the German. It was a smaller church. So August and I and two members of the St. Joseph Parish filed an appeal. It was not legally done. So meant we had to go to Rome. So we went to Rome, and when we first went there, we were appealing the closing because it was not done according to canon law. When we got there, we had to go to the congregation of the clergy. So I told Dominic, August, and the other two men from St. Joseph, I said, we'll go in there. We'll be like we don't understand Italian. You know, I couldn't navigate Italian. I knew what was going on. And the Monsignor told our guide, and he said, how do you know these people? That's how we got in. He says, well, my aunt lives in Chicago Heights, and she called and said to take care of him. So he was telling, we presented our appeal in English and in writing. So finally he came up, he says, look guys, I'm Monsignor Hillary Franco from that big city, New York, New York. He said, go home, St. Joseph won't close, and San Rocco won't close. You're still in existence. So we went happy back. Little did we know, on the Tuesday, before we got back, the edict came out, St. Joseph would be closed. But San Rocco would remain open. And we remained open until August of that year, and we had the last funeral for a conventual priest who died, and St. Anne's was closed. They were staffed by conventuals as well. So the church closed on August 1991. So we appealed it time and time again. We went to Rome, we went before the Signatura, and we were treated very, very nicely. And we had our guardian angel, Monsignor Burke, who's now Cardinal Burke, who's head of the Signatura. So we go before we had an attorney, we couldn't practice before the Signatura, Renato Ottaviani, who was a nephew of Cardinal Ottaviani, a name that's well known in the High Church officials. So lo and behold, the edict came out that we could remain open, that the procedures were not proper, that they would have to go back, the Archdiocese would have to go back and do the proceedings. August and I made trips to the Cardinal's office, Cardinal Bernardine, and the irony of this is 2 years before in '89, he came out to San Rocco, the Cardinal, and he promised us, he says, San Rocco is not in danger, not in danger. But somehow, somewhere along the line, we were in a dangerous zone. So after the Signatura came in, we were trying to go before the committee in the Archdiocese of Chicago to present our case. We couldn't get an audience. So the edict came out, the church was closed, it was to be demolished. And in fact, on February 28, 1995, August and I went there, and the records were there, destroyed the church, the rectory, the convent, and a school that was built in 1962. So that was done. But before the Cardinal passed away, deserted by our people. They moved to the west, to the north, to the east. So we had to have something to attract activities. So St. Anthony's Hall was built, another facility. So we are in existence, and we have a rector. But again, it's the question that the people wanted the church and the Italian tradition. We still have our activities, and hopefully that we will continue to be in existence forever, according to divine providence.
Yeah, this brings up the question of how long can an ethnic Catholic parish last? What is the lifespan of them? What is the lifespan of any ethnic Catholic parish? And at one time, the strategy of the Archdiocese was to, okay, people want to worship in their own language, so let's set up, churches can be right next door to each other, but if they're serving people different traditions, and that's what they want, let's do it that way. And that worked for quite a while. But as time went on, neighborhood changed, and changing identification and use of language and all those things made ethnic parishes obsolete. And so the corporation that is the church had to reevaluate how many stores it had, and whether they were competing against each other and whatnot. And so a lot of Italian Catholic churches went under. And a sensitivity about ethnicity was sometimes lacking in the Archdiocese. And certainly the San Rocco thing, they technically did it the wrong way. Sam and Augie caught them. And then they went right back and did it the right way. They had the pre-Senate vote to close it for sure. And so then they went and they knocked the damn thing down. And then they went and repented, and we got a structure that is the Oratory. It's an inspiring story. These two guys are heroes, but they are fighting the fight to keep alive an ethnic parish and an ethnic church. Yes?
Dominic, what was it about Chicago's neighborhood patterns that had so many small groups next to each other where you needed literally 6 parishes within a square mile to take care of those? Was it that they tried to keep this neighborhood small so that no one group would get too powerful?
Well, I think that generally speaking, the big companies tried to have a lot of different ethnic groups in them so that they would not unite and unionize easily, and to the disadvantage of the owners and managers. That's what's happened, and when you see an ethnic Catholic church functioning, why that is these days, that's an example of some effort on the part of people like Sam and Augie to maintain this, and I think we'll see some of the same kind of thing with regard to our next presenter, Joe.
I just want to say that, we're talking about the ethnicity of parishes, and I think parishes have gotten away from the ethnic base, and they moved into more a demographic state. Like I belong to Old St. Mary's at 15th and Michigan, sort of a dual parishioner status. But they were the ones that were at Van Buren and Wells Street downtown, and they moved to 1500 South Michigan. And they started a school, they went up to 4th grade, and just this year they built an entire school going up to 8th grade. And I volunteered at the Chicago Food Depository, where I was this morning. And our competition when we were there is Old St. Pat's. And Old St. Pat's, they were down to 3 actual families as members of the parish. Now they've built the school. They've added on to the school. They're known for the big festival, singles weekend, whatever you want to call it, every year. And their parish has grown in leaps and bounds. And it's become non-ethnic. the children factor, just as we were, you know, it's like, when we got out of high school or grade school, we moved out of the neighborhood, you know. And like people like to argue, friends and I started a Rosen Roundtable on Facebook, and we have 5,000 members, our friends, and they put up over 5,000 photos. But the whole thing is, everybody's like, oh, if we'd have stayed, Rosen would never have changed. Are you serious? The world moves forward and everything changes.
You know, if I could interject, one of the reasons these ethnic parishes go on their way out is rather obvious. The success of assimilation, that these ethnic groups eventually become more and more wonder-bred American and not as ethnic as they used to be.
You know,
Even
people
the
talk about
identity of
Hispanic
Italians.
parishes, like St. Anthony's got a big Hispanic influence. The thing is, oh my God, they don't learn how to speak the English language. Well, I can guarantee you, back in the day, in Pullman, a lot of people didn't speak English. Because you worked with people who spoke Italian, you shopped with people where people spoke Italian. So it's the same thing, except there's larger numbers of Latinos, because you just don't just talk about Mexico, you talk about the entire Latin population of the world. That's a greater number. So it stands to reason. It's like you said, you know, we don't have that ethnic base anymore. But we have a demographic to deal with. You know, that's what makes our parishes survive.
Okay, thanks. We're going to move on to